Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we're going to be going live, going to be talking to you guys about the Padres, going to be going over, this Pirates upcoming series, and then we're also going to be going over the Brewers series, which was pretty interesting because it was actually one where you saw a lot of really good starting pitching, and you thought that maybe if Snell had a good start, you could take the middle game. It looked like that for a while. Craig Stammen comes in, allows the 3-run bomb. That one hurt a lot. Couple comeback attempts kind of fizzled out as well. But looking at all these series, I think that we're going to continue to see a team that struggles to generate a lot of offense. It'll have its moments like we've seen in the past, and then I think that it's going to continue to be carried by the pitching. So that's kind of what we saw in this past series. I think the Pittsburgh series, we'll get into that one in a little bit. But I did want to say before we kind of get into Chase, before I hand it off to you, there was a shooting threat in a couple San Diego schools. So luckily, everyone was all right. No one got hurt, but it's been real scary with all of these shootings that are happening. So just wanted to kind of mention that if anyone's been affected by that, really, really sorry for what's going on. Definitely have our thoughts and stuff going that way, but wanted to quickly bring that up. But Chase, we're gonna get into this Brewer series. So what were your overall takeaways on it? Chase, you're muted.
My bad. I feel like we could have won if we had a decent center fielder. Like there's at least one hole. You could probably count DH in it because Luke Voigt is very hot and cold. But it feels like the only time that Grisham has done anything valuable for the team is when he's doing the safety squeeze. That's the only time he's getting on base. Basically, it feels like that. I know he started to have a stretch where he had a couple clutch hits, a couple clutch RBIs, maybe a double here and there. But recently, it's just every time he gets on base, I feel like it's due to a safety squeeze and he bunts it down perfectly. So if he's not like drag button every single at bat, then he's basically useless right now. Because even then, I remember seeing a tweet. It was about his center field defense being the worst in the league among qualified fielders in center field. He was last. So even then, we're not getting the defense that we got from him. He's just lost right now. Azokar is not much better. You'll get a little bit more hitting out of Azokar. He did have the clutch walk-off win a few days ago, which was a great moment for him. He tends to get on base. He tends to get at least a hit per game, which is pretty nice. But when you look at his batting average compared to his on base, he doesn't really walk a lot. It's mainly based on what he's hitting. And most of the time, he's bringing you singles. He's not bringing you a lot of power. He might scuff a player or two in the outfield, but outside of that, starting pitching was great. You said Stammen gave up the 3-1 shot. He doesn't do that. The second game looks a lot different. I thought Snell looked pretty good outside of, a couple of things. He struck out 7. He went the innings that he did. He's putting it together. I think by the next start, he's going to be really, really good. This last one just hurt to watch because the only run we scored was on a ground out double play, which means we probably shouldn't have scored that run. It was really bad. There's a lot of lack of offense, really. 1 run, 3-1-1. It's not great. You're not gonna win a lot of games with only 1 run. It's really bad. Like we can win with 1 run against the Pirates, but you get to the Cardinals, you get to the Brewers, you get to the Braves. Hell, even the Reds right now are destroyed a team. So yeah. It's just not looking good for the offense.
Dude, 100%. And we're looking at Grisham lately, over his last 600 at bats, he's been a very bad offensive player. And then Chase, you brought up those defensive metrics. You said they're last in the league. That is crazy because you look at Grisham and you go, okay, well, even if he's not hitting, he walks a lot. He's a great fielder. He's a great base runner, right? So it's okay, at least he can provide that. And the other thing was he didn't hit for high average, but he had some pop in his bat. There's no pop in his bat. He has 1 home run this year. You brought up the most confident we feel about it is when he comes up and drag bunts. And you look at a lot of his hits, he's hit a couple real hard in the right field. outside of that, like a couple. Most of the time, it's like bloop single, infield hit, bunt, swinging bunt. Like it's not really, there's not really anything there offensively. I saw that Isaac said, you know, he commented he's one of the worst fastball hitters in baseball right now. Dude, you can see it. Like just like when you watch, he gets overpowered by fastballs so much, strikes out looking so much. It's been rough for Trent Grisham. So I think we're gonna start talking about, potentially upgrading at center field if this continues because it has been that many at bats. People talk about Voit and Cronenworth being concerned about them. Dude, Voigt's OPS is up over 600 already. He was like 400 when he came off the DH or the IL. I'm sorry, and now like he's got a few reps at DH, and we're seeing that a little bit, but he's improving. Like Cronenworth has like a 630 OPS. It's bad, but it's like okay, he's slumping really heavily right now. He's still walking. He's still playing great defense. He's still saving plays at second base. So like I'm not super concerned there. But the guy I'm the most the two guys I'm most concerned about are one of them's clearly Trent Grisham, but then also Austin Nola because Austin Nola is same kind of boat. He's a better hitter. I definitely feel like that's the case, but he doesn't provide any power, and he kind of walks a little bit, but there's like very very little power there. So it's been tough.
Yeah, and then it just seems like when Machado and now Hosmer aren't doing anything, it's just the offense is blank. I mean, it's really up to another guy to really pick up the slack. I mean, we've kind of noticed Hosmer's on a slight decline. He went from hitting like over 380, now he's at 325. His OPS has dropped a lot. We were kind of expecting this because when you looked at his baseball savant page, he only had like a 3.3% line goal, which is basically a ground ball rate every time. And we started to notice it. He started to strike out a little bit more. But Machado went 0 for 3 yesterday with one walk. It feels like if Machado doesn't hit or bring someone in, the team is just quiet. There's like no heart. There's like nothing going on. It's just silent bats across the board. But if Machado gets going, a couple other guys will get going and we'll bring in some. I mean, Kim, he's bringing his average up, but he's still, 692 OPS. Myers has struggled the last few games. Hosmer's been struggling for a minute. I still don't know what to think about Profar. He broke out at the beginning of the season. We kind of thought he was going to go back to where he's at right now. We're really hoping that he'll go back to his 2020 numbers, but yeah, it's just this the weight on the pitchers and the bullpen shoulder is just insane at this point. I mean, you should win most of these games. A 1-2 game, you should win. A 1-4 game, maybe not. These games where we're losing 3-0, it's because there's a lack of pitching their ass off. I mean, we have one of the best starting rotations in baseball. The bullpen's getting a little bit better, but we're not going to win games if we can't score. And it feels like we're watching the Padres of 10 years ago. Oh, no. Watching the Padres of 10 years ago compared to the Padres that we're used to in the last 2 years.
I'm muted. Um, I was gonna say Ruiz has been really good. I also saw you brought up Lamet. Um, it's good to see Lamet's playing well. Ruiz. I kind of wonder if Ruiz could end up getting a spot on this team late in the season if we have someone get hurt. If we have potentially Cano get moved. Like I don't know. Maybe you could see him on the roster, but he's been playing really good. But I don't know, man. How you feel about like? Is there anyone we haven't really talked about the farm in a while? Um, is there anyone in the farm system that you think is either going to get moved or called up or something like that?
I mean, Abrams is hitting. If we really wanted to go that route, I think you need to give him center field reps at this point. I mean, unless we want to throw Profar in center and see how that goes again, and then throw Myers and then Abrams and right, because I think that's the only spot Abrams has played. That could work. But other than Esther Ruiz, it's a lot of the younger guys. It's, the James Wood. I think even though he's on the IL right now, it's the Robert Hassels. It's the guys in single A right now. We have a couple pitchers, coming back, but they're mostly pitchers. And outside of Esther Ruiz, I don't think there's a guy ready in Double A or Triple A that's worth giving a shot right now. I mean, Ruiz has been killing it. He deserves a shot, at least over Cano, at least over. Is he still on the roster? Sergio Alcantara? Pretty sure he is. He's still on the starting roster. I don't think he's played a game yet. He hasn't played a game yet.
He subbed in one game, like late in the game.
Okay.
And then he got an at-bat.
One at bat. Are we holding a Jake Marisnik again for no reason while other guys in the minor leagues just go off and don't get an opportunity? Dude, no. You could drop Alcantara, you could drop Cano, you could bring up Ruiz, and you can bring up another bullpen arm. There's no reason you can't. Obviously, there's a real big hole in center field. Azokar, we thought deserved the shot. He'll get his shot continuously, but there's still no viable future where Azokar is going to carry us to a World Series. Azokar is going to carry us in the outfield. We have 3 below average outfield bats right now. Myers will end up being about an average to an above average at bat at most. Grisham has been probably the worst center field over the last 600 at bats in the MLB, and Profar is incredibly inconsistent. He may lead the league in outfield assists, but you're not going to win with that. You're not going to win with Manny Machado doing all the heavy lifting, having to score every single person. Machado has over 1,000 OPS, and we still lost yesterday. I'm expecting Hosmer to absolutely do nothing now, just because he's gotten figured out. People are shifting on him where they should be shifting on him, and unless he hits the ball in the air again.
Chase, you see he got a few hits though this last series. He hadn't in a while. He had been really, really bad, but I think he had 4 hits last series. 3 or 4.
Still, what were they? Singles, ground ball singles. See,
of course.
I mean, so you can score off a ground ball single. There's nothing wrong with that, but we need power out of our first baseman at the same time because we're not getting it from you're not getting it from anywhere else. Cano's not going to bring it to you. Voigt's supposed to bring it to us, but hasn't really. Alfaro's probably our best option outside of there because we already know Machado's going to hit it. Profar is very inconsistent at that point. Myers really hasn't shown off some power outside of the Giants series other than the time he hit one off the right field wall. Then maybe that one time where he deserved to hit that home. Oh, speaking of this, the humidifiers are not working. Please stop with them. They are not working. They're just making the baseballs die in the air in the outfield. It's so bad. It's so bad. I remember the Cubs-Padres game specifically and the whole baseball situation. I still think the MLB is on some stuff with that. Because if you look at the Giants-Cubs games, that game went ballistic with the amount of home runs there. But you go back to the Padres-Cubs games where it wasn't a primetime game. It wasn't anything special. Both of those balls deserve to go out. The who was it? It was It wasn't Patrick Wisdom, was it? It was another guy. And then Myers. They hit 2 moonshots that were that should have realistically gone out. Voigt had hit another one in a different series at 104 miles an hour, 22 exit or 104 exit velo, 22% launch angle. That was a home run guaranteed last year. That was 100% a home run last year, and the ball traveled 320 feet. There is an MLB account. It was there's an MLB about on Twitter. It tweets every barrel in the MLB and who it was by. I'm forgetting the account's name, but it always gives you the exit velo, launch angle, and the feet for it. And if you looked at the ones from last year compared to this year, balls that were leaving the park incredibly far last year are maybe either just barely going out or just fly ball outs. So I don't know if it's the humidifiers and the baseball because, they wanted to take away the juiced balls. And I still think they're using two different balls. Whatever Manfred has done with the baseballs and the whole outfield and it's bad.
Dude, it's absurd. It is so crazy that that's how like mismanaged the baseball. Like out of everything, like I don't know, like out of all the things that you could screw up, I feel like you have a baseball that's so bad that players are saying it's like hitting a pair of wet socks. That is like I don't understand how that gets messed up. Wouldn't they test to see like, oh look, these are supposed to help these humidifiers, and then they look and they go, wow, well it's not working. They didn't run any trials or simulations or anything. Like it doesn't make much sense. If the goal was to reduce home runs, that also makes no sense at all. Like that, like if you don't want to juice the balls, that's great, but they definitely do juice them in primetime games. Do you remember the Braves Padres game? That game, everything was getting out of the park. Kid hit a home run. It was going like everyone was just going back to back. There was a bunch of home runs. I think there were 2 games that series that were nationally broadcasted, and both of them were at a ton of runs, I believe. So we've seen that, like your kind of theory about the 2 baseballs. Also, they basically said that last year. I don't know why that would have changed. So I definitely hope that changes, right? Like they need to make that adjustment. It's not a good idea. It's like it makes no sense. And I don't know if anyone I ever heard one person be like, I like that they did that. Not one single person. I've heard everything is it's extremely negative towards it. So hopefully that changes. But yeah, dude, like for guys like Voit and like guys that like are trying to like that hit a lot of home runs, that's kind of what their game is predicated on. A lot of them have struggled. Now there have been some guys like Jock Peterson and some guys that are hitting a bunch of home runs still. But we've seen Voit struggle. We've seen like Cronenworth's power numbers dip down. Like we've seen a lot of these guys' power numbers dip down. Pretty much everyone on the team except for Machado and Profar. So you got to generate power. I do think that it's down league wide, so I think that also is a big factor. But hopefully the balls are fixed. Hopefully we get power out of Myers and Voit. I mean Myers has definitely been better over the last like since he returned from the IL. Myers and Voit actually, but if this lineup isn't going to add anyone, which I do expect that it will, but we don't really know who that is yet. If they're going to need to add, I think, an outfielder, probably a center fielder, right? But outside of them, Myers and Voit need to be like guys that are significant like producers for this team, which it's risky. It's definitely risky, but we'll see if it works out. But I don't know. You think the Padres have to add a center fielder if Grisham keeps us up over like maybe the next month?
I think we have a large enough sample size to say that Grisham's going to keep this up over the next month, and yes, they kind of have to. I mean, if we wait another month, because realistic Tatis isn't going to swing a bat for at least another month, because news came out that his wrist is still not where it needs to be, so he's not going to be able to swing a bat for at least I think another month. So that puts us end of June. No Tatis, one of the worst center fielders in baseball. Let's see where Profar is at, and let's see where Myers is at. But Myers has been turning it around. He's in a little bit of a slump right now. He's hitting 233, 281 with a 333 slugging in his last 7. His last 15 look good, but we'll see how he bounces back from that. Profar's been hitting a little bit better. We'll see how Kim is doing, and we'll see where Cronenworth is at. But realistically, if we have 2 or 3 holes in the lineup like we do right now, this team's going to fall apart. It's not going to fall apart for the lack of pitching like it was last year and the year before. It's going to fall apart because of lack of offense, which has happened for, the past 10 years. Like we know what happens when the Padres don't have offense. We rely on our pitchers heavily to win games. And that's not I know Isaac said great pitching and great defense is a key to success in baseball. It really is. But at the same time, when you have 3 or 4 holes in your lineup, I'm going to say 4 because of catcher. You're not going to win games relying on 5 guys to score the majority of runs. You need at least a solid 7 bats. And when 4 of them are hitting below a 750 or 4 or more are hitting below a 750 OPS, it's a recipe for failure.
Yeah, I see a question right here. Why are they all sucking at hitting at the same time? I do actually think that a lot of it is that the league offense, league wide, is down a lot. I think that is playing a role. I also think that you look at the team, and Voigt's on a new team, right? Nola was hurt last year. Grisham's been struggling a lot. Myers got hurt, but like Myers has been back a little bit. Cronenworth, he's been slumping. Like it feels like a lot of guys are just slumping at the same time, and then on top of it, it makes it even worse because offense is down league. Why do we just talk about the baseballs? Like that is affecting the game heavily. And so that's why when you look at like the Padres offense, I believe they're ranked in like the high 20s in like overall like stats in terms of like OPS plus and stats like that. But they're actually producing a lot of runs, which I will say that's actually gone a long way. I mean, you're talking about how little offense there's been. When they get a couple guys on, they've been able to get a couple clutch hits or sacrifices, and that has won them so many games. So, you bring up like kind of the scrap, like those scrappy wins of like pitching, defense, sacrifices, stuff like that. They've done a really good job in that department. But in terms of producing from a hitting standpoint, from a power standpoint, they're really struggling. Like and I think it's sustainable in some ways. Like I think that they'll still be good, but if they really want to be one of the elite teams, you need to be a really good offensive team and a really good pitching team. Like this is all sports. Like you have to produce both ways. In football and basketball, you have to be a good offensive team. Maybe less basketball because it kind of depends on your stars. But I still think like if you get exposed in basketball and defense, or you can't score, like you're not going to win. Same thing in football. You usually all the teams are top 10 in both units. In baseball, look who ends up making it. The teams that have a really good starting rotation and a bunch of guys that can hit off other guys that are elite starting pitchers in the playoffs. So like, I think that you're going to need to see them add a couple guys, but it's been tough for sure early on from these guys, and I do think that we will see a lot of these guys improve. Like we were talking about it, I think there's only two guys I'm super concerned about in the lineup long term, and that would be Nola and Grisham, which really sucks because these were two guys that were bounce back candidates. Like I think I thought Nola was going to be the bounce back guy. Almost everyone in the comments thought, oh, this is going to be Grisham. Offensively, neither of those guys have panned out at all. Luckily, the pitching bounce back guy, and well, there's kind of two of them. There's Blake Snell and then Yu Darvish, but Yu Darvish has been great. Blake Snell's barely pitched. Actually, Blake Snell looked really good. We didn't really talk about him too much, but I thought he looked really good. It was unfortunate that Stammen gave up the home run, but I don't know. I think that offensively you've just seen a lack of it, but I don't really know. Like, it's tough. Do you think that like the league, like the baseballs, have that big of an effect?
Oh yeah. I mean, when you realistically look at it, the power numbers are down across the entire MLB. A lot of guys aren't hitting. I know Irie Fangeek has mentioned it. If you looked at it, Myers and Machado, they've just been lining balls into the outfield, like into the gaps, basically. A lot of Myers' hits are just straight line drives. Manny's been sort of doing the same thing recently. When people hit the ball in the air, it's just almost a guaranteed out at this point. I mean, the game evolved into you have to hit the ball in the air to be successful, and now they're being punished for hitting the ball in the air. It's like they're trying to bring small ball back, and it's not working. The baseball game had evolved away from small ball, and they're trying to bring it back when a lot of people were making that adjustment because of the juice baseballs. That was the key to this. That was a great key to success. Was you hit the ball in the air, you hit it over the infield, you got a chance for a home run, if not a guaranteed double with gap to gap hitting. And now players are being punished for hitting those fly balls. It's just the way that baseball had changed. And Manfred, I don't know why Manfred decided to go back to the old baseballs. It was like if you gave the hitters the juice baseballs and you gave the pitchers either a better baseball, not like take away the juice from it, but better grip, something for better grip, you would have a happy medium. The pitchers would get to locate their stuff wherever. They'd get a little bit more spin on the ball, something that really wouldn't change like spin rate like spider tack, but something better than rosin. And you would have had the happy medium. You had an entire 2 years to deal with it since the incident, or an entire year at least since the incident of, okay, no more sicky stuff. Realistically, the MLB knew longer than that and knew it was going to come out, but really haven't done anything to offer a happy medium. And now the pitchers are going off. People kind of forget that baseball is a two-way sport. You need successful pitchers, but you also need successful hitters. And now it's like we have a couple successful hitters, but a lot more successful pitchers. It kind of makes the sport a boring game. I feel like 2020 and the first half of 2021 were great. Sure, the pitching numbers went down just a little bit, but the pitchers adjusted, and so did the game of baseball. It was much more exciting. You got a lot more runs. People had some career years. It was great. But then Manfred took that all away in just one offseason. It's bad. And I see Steve Robinson mentions, just use the Japanese baseball. A lot of the MLB players like the Japanese baseball. I know Yu Darvish had brought some over and was showing teams around during the whole sticky substance ban, and everything. He was showing teams the baseball, and they were loving with it. They loved it. They thought they could grip the ball well. It was perfect. It was just great. And now Manfred has just been like, nah, you know what? We're going to deaden the baseball and do nothing to help the hitters. It just doesn't work like that. Manfred's like the worst commissioner out of all sports. There was a poll done by a TikTok account, and they asked all their employees, who's the worst commissioner in sports? And Manfred won by like 5 votes. So the difference between the Japanese baseball is it's a little bit smaller. I think it's like half an inch to an inch smaller circumference-wise. And then it's tackier, so it has better grip. The seams are a little bit different, but it's the same weight basically. It's a tackier baseball, and it has better stitches, so pitchers can grip the ball a little bit more. It doesn't change the velocity between the MLB and Japan. It'll change from, okay, players can actually hit the ball a little bit harder. Players can hit home runs. That'll be the main difference, but it's just a little bit tackier of a baseball and has better grip.
Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate. I feel the same way about, the baseballs right now. And you hear what the players have to say, and they're saying the same stuff. But I do think this is a big part, because I think if you look at the Padres team, you don't have a lot of great hitters. You really don't. You have a lot of guys that get on base pretty good, like a guy like Nola, Grisham in the past. They had good on base numbers, not crazy power numbers. But when the baseballs were better in 2020, they were hitting a lot more home runs. They're hitting for a lot more power. Now we're seeing that that's not the case. And there's a lot of guys on this team that are struggling a lot, and the power numbers are really down. I don't know who this was either, Quan fan, but you bring it up that someone basically said that hitters should try to have a 2-strike approach with a shorter swing, smaller toe tap, etc. I think I completely agree. How often do we see Padres guys end up striking out looking? Like that has to improve in terms of the approach there. But I don't know. I think that's going to be the main frustration of this team. I do want to get into the pitching a little bit more before we take off, because as negative as the hitting can be, the pitching has been still spectacular. So I wanted to just kind of ask you, how, like, with what the Padres have in offense right now, let's say they're producing a little bit better, because like with the group they're likely to improve a little bit. Like I think we're going to see that. I think that me, you, and Isaac all believe that. But with this elite starting pitching, with a couple guys from the bullpen coming back, where do you think this team can be in terms of pitching league-wide?
I think they can maybe I want to say they can be the best. Like realistically, I think they can be the best, or not realistically, but just the hype that I have around the guys coming back from the bullpen and the starting pitching is insane. I think realistically, you can be a top 5 to 7 unit in baseball. We had a rocky start with the bullpen in the beginning of the season. They let up a lot of runs. We had a lot of struggles between Suarez, Stammen, a couple inconsistencies from Garcia. We've had our couple inconsistencies from Hill. The real only guy that's been super consistent is Rogers. We're probably not going to get Pierce Johnson back. We're probably not going to get Austin Adams back, which hurts. So I say realistically top 5 to 7. I do think they have the potential to be top 3. Our rotation is completely stacked. You're going to get guys like Palmbat, Morejon, Castillo. I know Isaac's not the biggest fan of Michelle Baez, but he's going to make a difference for us too. That's just 4 guys. And they won't come and all make an impact instantly. So I think realistically top 5 to 7 with potential to be top 3.
So I want to bring something up, and I don't know if they're number 1, but they have to be among the top in the league in quality starts. I know that there was maybe like 2 weeks ago, there was a chart of all the starters in the league, and the Padres had like 3 guys in like the top 4 or 5, so it was something ridiculous. They've produced a ton of quality starts, so I think that when you look at their like raw pitching numbers, they're not that high. I think they're like 8th or 9th in the league in terms of ERA, like FIP, stuff like that. However, when you look at it from how many games are you getting where they're like the other team is scoring like no runs, they're way up there. So I think that's something that, when you're like looking at the overall rankings, you kind of have to give the Padres a little bit of a boost on that, because if you're having all these quality starts where it's your pitchers like Musgrove is going 7 innings and it feels like he goes 7 innings and gives up 1 run every single start. It felt like that's been the last few. And then you have a guy come in the bullpen, even he allows a run or even 2 runs, and then you have Rogers come in the 9th. Those are like automatic wins most of the time for this team, because even if they're not scoring much, a lot of times they need 2 to 3 runs and they will win those games when they get that good start from a lot of these starters. And there's so many guys that are bringing that to the table. So I think it's kind of hard to look at it like, oh, they had this game and then the bullpen got totally blown up in like the end of the game and it was a lost cause and they gave up 12 runs or whatever. Like you're going to see some of those, but I'd rather see a few of those and then have a bunch of games where it's like the team scored 1 run. Because if you don't have a great offense, that's how you win. And so we're seeing that a lot. So I also think the bullpen too, that's been the big struggle. The bullpen's going to be better. So let's say that the Padres finish, you said like top 5, 7, say they're 5th in the league. They might be 5th in the league, but come playoff time, you might look at that rotation, you might look at that bullpen and go, this is the best. I really think they can be that level. And especially if they go and add another, like a setup man, because we talked about that. So I don't know. I'm excited for it. I also see some comments up here. Is it Roy Suzuki? Is that the one you're looking at, Chase?
Roki Sasaki. Oh my God. I know we wanted to talk about him for a little bit. We were just going to do a little bit more research and then we just sort of forgot about him. But that guy is absolutely phenomenal. I know Shohei was supposed to be the star pitcher from Japan, but Roki Sasaki might just put that away. I mean, it was last month where he threw a no-hitter, and then the next start he had, he almost threw a no-hitter, but I think he walked someone. So it was 2 perfect games. I think he walked someone and then got let up a hit in the 9th inning of his next start. So he had a perfect game and then had a perfect game going into the 9th inning again. Absolutely insane pitcher. Oh my God. If you haven't looked him up, he is nasty. He throws 100 miles an hour, has an insane splitter, has a really good off-speed slider. When he is allowed to come over to the MLB, teams are going to break the bank. You see how Shohei Ohtani has pitched? This kid might be a little bit better than him. He's known as the pitching phenom. He's insane. And I know you guys are talking about which hole should we replace first? Which hole in the lineup should we prioritize? Realistically, Tatis is coming back, whether or not next month in July. So the infield hole is going to clear itself up no matter what. So that means you look at catcher. Realistically, the only option right now is William Contreras, which, yes, he would be amazing to have. But I don't know if that's the way to go. I think all the pitchers like Nola. Realistically, every single pitcher likes pitching to Nola. He makes a difference when it comes to the battery and the chemistry between pitcher and catcher. I think you kind of have to roll with him. So I think center field is probably, or the outfield is the hole that you go to first. And I still think your best option there is Austin Hayes. I've kind of just been watching his numbers. He's having a little bit of a career year, but he's super cheap. You could bring him back with an arbitration deal after this year. He's hitting 283. He has 4 home runs, 20 RBIs, and a 783 OPS. He plays left field. You could realistically move Profar over to center and then have Grisham be your backup center fielder with an occasional start. I think that's your best shot at doing that. You always have Frederick Mullins. I think Hayes might be able to play center. I really don't know. There's not a lot of good center fielders out there that are worth trading for that aren't on good teams already. So that is the problem there. Unless you start throwing Abrams in center field in the minor leagues, I think, you have to fill a hole in left field and maybe throw Profar out there and give him another shot at center. You may be sacrificing some defense, but let's be realistic here. We mentioned earlier, Grisham isn't that good defensively this year, so I think that might be the way to go.
I feel like Brian Reynolds' name is going to come back up. I really do think that. He hasn't been playing super well. We're going to see him this weekend. If anyone's going to the game, you guys will actually get to see him in person, which will be cool. But he's been playing center for the Pirates. I think it makes a lot of sense. The Pirates suck. You can package Grisham plus a lot to potentially go get him. I feel like I think they would have more value in Grisham than a lot of other teams just because they're not good. Going to be on a cheap deal. You can try to work with him. You can try to improve him. Obviously, it'll cost a lot more. But I feel like if you go and you end up paying that could be something that could really pan out for this team. I don't know if Reynolds is going to put up some of the numbers he's put up in the past because he's had some really, really good years. But I also see, I think it was Irie, I think you said that the biggest hole is leadoff hitter. Brian Reynolds can come in and immediately be your leadoff hitter. So I think that makes a ton of sense. But that's like the expensive guy. That's the guy you go after that, that costs a ton that you're really like trying to hit a home run with. I think that could easily be the case. But we'll see if it happens. I think if they go and get him, you could see them go and get him and then extend him right away and kind of be like, all right, this is our other piece that we're kind of replacing Myers with here, which could end up being really good. I saw that people were talking about Robert Hassel too, that he's not going to be ready for a little bit, so Myers might end up coming back. I've always thought that was a possibility that Myers would come back on like a 1-year deal, maybe like $5 million, not a lot. Something similar to like Jock Peterson, Tommy Pham, like those kind of guys have been signing a deal around there, maybe like 7 or 8, I guess. But I don't know. What do you think? We'll take off here in a second, but what do you think about them going after like a bigger guy like Brian Reynolds, or would you rather them do something a little bit smaller, a little bit cheaper in a trade?
I think you're off going someone cheaper. It's a better move. Reynolds really isn't hitting right now. And I know I didn't mention him earlier, but Quan Pham just mentioned him. Benintendi, he is having a career year right now. He's hitting 327 with over an 800 OPS. He might be able to play center, but he's a really good corner outfield. That's where you're going to get the best defense from him. I don't really know about his speed. The Royals right now are 14-28. They're 12 games back from first, and they're on a 6-game losing streak. That is probably one of your more realistic teams that you're going to get someone to trade for. But however, Benintendi is going to be a hot bat. If you trade for him now, you probably have the best shot, and you fill an instant hole. You bring a guy over that's cheap. You may be able to extend him for not that much. We'll see. But the Royals are 18-27, 13.5 back. Those realistically, and the Mariners, which, you have Mitch Haniger, you have a couple of guys there. They have a plethora of outfielders to choose from. But realistically, those are the two guys that you probably would want. The Reds team isn't really good. The Nationals are horrible. But there's not a lot of center field options. I like Ian Happ. I do like Ian Happ from the Cubs, but yeah.
Do you think Benintendi could play there, or do you think he's probably playing left? Probably left, huh?
Yeah, let me look that up. I don't know if he's ever played center. I know he's played right, and I know he's played left. But let me see.
I do really like him as an option too. I
do. He's a great hitter. Let's see.
I think that one makes a lot of sense. If he could play center, that'd be huge.
He played center field. He played 12 games in center for Boston in 2019. 2018, he played 24. And he played 5 games in center in 2016. I haven't seen any. It's mainly been left field for the last 3 years.
That makes sense. I feel like if you go and get him, move him to left, and then you have Profar, Myers, Grisham switching out in center and right. It's not very good. But I do think it helps the outfield substantially. I think that would be a lot better. And if either Profar or Myers can play solid in center, I think that would help a lot too. But it's starting to get a little scary for Trent. I know we've talked about him a lot, but I do think that makes sense. Oh, I see a question here. We'll probably take off in a second. Why do we put Profar in the 3 hole? Why do we take out Azekar and put in Grisham? Why was Kim hitting after Myers? Terrible lineup. That's what they lost. I mean, they're not producing, but I don't think it was. I don't understand Profar in 3 either. I completely agree. When you're talking about them moving Osakar and Grisham back and forth, they've been doing the same thing with Voit and Cano. I think it's really just matchup dependent. I think that's the only reason why they're doing that. I don't mind that as much. Kim hitting after Myers. Let's see. Myers was what, 5th, right? Kim was 7th. Was he 6th? He might have been
Kim was
6th.
7th last game.
Yeah, I don't mind Kim at 7th. I like him in like that kind of like back end, because a lot of times he'll get on base for Cronenworth or Machado or something like that. But 7 is still kind of high. But if you I don't know, I don't mind that as much. I think ideally that you have Myers hitting 6th. Like, you add enough pieces where Myers will hit 6th, and then I think that looks a lot better for your team. Myers at 5 is a little too rich for me. Also, Profar at 3 is not ideal in the slightest.
Yeah, but who would you put? I wouldn't put Hosmer at 3. That's just like asking for a double play. Would you put Myers at 3?
No.
I feel like Myers is a great 5 or 6 hitter. You keep him there. Do you put Kim over Profar at 3?
It's tough.
Do you put Voit over Profar at 3?
You should put Voit. I think Voigt's starting to heat up a little bit. He looks a lot better than he did. Dude, early on, oh my God, he looked so bad when he first came over. He looks a lot better now. He looks like he's starting to settle in a little bit. He got unlucky with that 1 home run. He had the game where he had 2. He's got a few hits. I think that he deserves to start getting a little bit more reps. Also, I mean, if you look at Voigt's numbers, they're not far off of Kim's offensive numbers. Like, he's very close. He's a few OPS points, like I think less than 50. And this is after hitting like 140 for like the entire first part of the year.
Yeah.
But he's almost to like a higher average. So I think that he should hit 4th or 5th, honestly. I think it's rough when you have Cano in the lineup over him.
Yeah, a little bit. So then do you put Nola at 3rd? Because so far Profar's not moving from 3. And then do you put Azekar over Profar?
I think you adjust a little bit. I think that you put Cronenworth. Do you like Cronenworth leading off? I don't like Cronenworth leading off, man. It's tough.
So then you put Profar at leadoff?
There's not many good options. How about we get Tatis, and then it's gonna fix itself.
We're talking about right now, though. We're talking about the current lineup. No, I think Cronenworth is a bet. I like Cronenworth at 3.
I think I like him at 3 more too. He's a clutch hitter too. Like, even this year, he's had some big time hits. Actually, that's not horrible. Profar sees a lot of pitches. I know it's not horrible. And he's getting on base like how he usually does. He's hitting 220. That's like what he usually does. So he's probably getting. I'm guessing he's getting on base like 34% of the time. That's my guess. He sees a lot of pitches too. Right, I know. I believe he sees the most pitches on the Padres currently. Or like,
so the only other way I think you could fix it is you put Azekar at the leadoff spot, which I'm not sure how comfortable I feel with that.
I'm with Profar at 1. And do you see this? Sky commented he's tied for 6 most walks in the MLB, and a lot of that is not hitting that high in the order either.
Yeah, no. So as of right now, Profar is getting on base at a 322 percentage. He has, where are walks? 25 walks to 27 strikeouts, which is pretty good. That's actually really, really good. So,
I'm sold.
Probably Profar.
So then what would he do? Profar, Manny, Cronenworth? You're not putting Hosmer at 4, are you? I'm putting Voit at 4.
Absolutely not. There is
I'll
no.
put Hos at 5 and Myers 6. Kim 7,
And then
8 Nola, 9 Azakar or Grisham. I like that a
did you
lot
have
more.
Void at 4 then?
Yeah. I know it's bold because
Okay.
he's not been good for the majority of the season, but I do, dude. Like you gotta look at his career numbers. He's an 850 OPS guy. Like, and okay, I
Yeah.
will say this: if Hosmer's hot, you can put Hosmer at 4. I don't have a problem with that. And then
I will never put Hosmer at 4.
he's got RBIs at least. He has got. You
He's
have
got
to admit that.
RBIs because teams shifted on him the wrong way and let up a ground ball moving 60 miles an hour to the infield.
And it might be partially true as well.
So what I would do is I'd probably put Profar off, Machado at second, Cronenworth at third, Voit, Myers, then Haas, then Nola, Azokar, and Kim. I like Kim at 9 as a second leadoff. He might be able to bring those guys in. If not, he's getting on base for, Machado to actually bring in guys. I don't like Machado at 2. I really like Machado down in the lineup, but realistically, Machado's the only guy hitting and getting on base a lot. So you kind of have to put him on 2 and hope the guys behind him hit.
You would like him at like cleanup, huh? Typically.
I would either like 3 or 4. I think you can switch Cronenworth and Machado either way. I think 4 is a great spot for Machado, and then you can put Tatis at 2. I think that's golden, and then maybe Profar at 1. If not, Tatis at leadoff is also another good option.
And then if you go and if you get Benintendi, then you put Benintendi at 1, and then you put Profar at 9, and then Grisham goes to the bench. Could happen. Could happen. That makes it look a lot better. Bless you. That makes it look a lot better. I like him at 9. I think you like it too. Yeah, I think that's a good spot because like the only thing is he's not going to get as many at bats. Like that is the big deal if you have him at if you have Kim at 9. But it does play a good role if you can run, if you can be a guy that gets on base and someone hits one in the gap and you're at first and you can go first to home. Like that plays a lot. I think that's really important. So I kind of like having like your 9 hitter, like maybe not necessarily the best hitter out of your 7, 8, 9 spots, but the guy that can produce the most runs like once he gets on the base paths and also can get on base a decent amount. So that's why I like Kim at 9 too. Kim or Profar. 1 Kim, 2 Crone, 3 Machado, 4 Hosmer, 5 Voit, 6 Myers, 7 Profar, 8 Nola, 9 Grish. I don't know if Kim gets on base enough. That'd be my only thing. I don't dislike it though. I like Crone and Machado back to back. I think that's smart.
Yeah, that's it's like I wanted to put, but I don't know if he walks enough. That's my only thing. Is I also think I like the lineup protection of having him at 9, and then it's either crap we go after this guy or we walk him and have to deal with the top of the lineup. I think he gets a little bit more better pitches that way.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think that's gonna do it for today, guys. I do see this one though. So when are you gonna call AJ and get the chicken back for a few games? I would love to see it. Are you all for the chicken coming back for a couple of games?
I'm fine with the chicken.
Dude, I like the chicken. I remember we talked about this a while back, but definitely big fans of the chicken. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for today's episode, though. Thank you for hopping on. We'll have a couple segments out the next 2 days. Not sure what we're going to be talking about yet, but we'll have those out. And then on Sunday, we will go live after the Pirates series. Hopefully a sweep. Padres have good pitching up this series, and they should take at least 2 out of 3 in this one. So it'll be a lot of fun. But again, it's going to do it for today's episode. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you very soon.